Mr. Chairman, and thanks for convening this critically important hearing. I look forward to the dialogue, and it's great to have people in place who are now in charge of our cybersecurity system at the federal government level. Our strategy for protecting our cyber networks and our critical infrastructure is something that we've been struggling with, frankly, and to have the leadership in place is very important to get that strategy right. One important part of it, in my view, is accountability, and I hope to have a conversation about the appropriate roles and responsibilities for the many different cybersecurity positions within the federal government. You know, who's in charge, who's making the decisions, who's accountable. I also look forward to discussing how cyber incident reporting legislation might better inform that strategy. As the Chairman has just said, I think that's very important, and I think we can get that right. I think we can get a bipartisan product on that. In recent years, hostile cyber adversaries, both foreign and domestic, have executed some of our most damaging cyber attacks ever, and we all know about these. We've had hearings about them, Colonial Pipeline most recently. Both the federal government and the private sector companies have been targeted. We held hearings on SolarWinds, Colonial Pipeline, and others. These events are stark reminders of the wide-ranging and real-world impacts of sophisticated cyber attacks, impacts on people. These attacks have become more and more common, and so it's important that we work to protect ourselves and our networks. One of the best strategies for preventing these attacks, of course, is to improve baseline cybersecurity practices, basic cyber hygiene. We also know that federal agencies have failed to make meaningful progress on the implementation of these practices, as is actually required by law under FISMA, the Federal Information Security Modernization Act. In August, just last month, Chairman Peters and I released a report detailing the significant cybersecurity vulnerabilities of 8 key federal agencies: Department of Homeland Security, State, Transportation, Housing, Health and Human Services, Ag, Education, and Social Security. This report follows a 2019 report I released with Senator Carper as chair of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, evaluating the same 8 agencies. In this year's report, only DHS, Department of Homeland Security, had an effective cybersecurity program. Every other agency featured in the report failed to meet the standard. We also found that the average grade across all government agencies was a C-, close to failing. The report identifies several common agency vulnerabilities, including the failure to adequately protect personally identifiable information, maintain an accurate and up-to-date list of the agency's IT assets, install security patches in a timely fashion, and retire vulnerable legacy technology that is no longer secure. Securing fragmented networks against increasingly sophisticated attackers is not an easy or trivial task. It would be unfair to suggest otherwise. Yet, in nearly 7 years since FISMA was last updated in 2014, agencies still have the same vulnerabilities year after year. Accountability is a critical aspect of any strategy. All 3 witnesses with us here today have heard me discuss the importance of it for federal cybersecurity in particular. At all of your confirmation hearings and in our conversations, we talked about the need to ensure that we have appropriate accountability for these federal networks and the agency systems. Among the 3 of you and the Deputy National Security Advisor for Cyber, I believe we will continue to see these inconsistencies or vulnerabilities because of the question about accountability, unless we're clear about who's in charge to better prevent, who's in charge to better respond to cyber attacks. I look forward to continuing that discussion today, again, of how we can best achieve that accountability. We're also here to discuss this topic of overarching strategy and particularly cyber incident reporting. As I said, recent attacks on critical infrastructure, particularly through ransomware, demonstrated how prompt notification to the government can benefit both the government and its victims. In the case of Colonial Pipeline, the FBI was able to recover part of the ransom paid by Colonial to the attackers. There is a balance between getting information quickly, letting victims respond to an attack without imposing onerous requirements on them, and getting accurate information. We understand that balance, and we want to try to reach the right balance to be sure that we are actually doing what we intend to do, which is to both help the private sector and government agencies deal with cyber attacks. I look forward to the witnesses' perspective on how to balance those competing priorities. Again, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the witnesses being here today. Glad you're in place, and I look forward to the dialogue.